video, I'm going to share with you more about the house purchasing process. So what I've done is created a blueprint to give you a better understanding on the process flow, the different elements that is involved in terms of like the paperwork, the legal fees, why are there two stamp duties. Some might be wondering like, okay, once I make my purchase, how long does it take for me before I get my keys? So these are very common questions I have. Of course, this is just a blueprint. It may vary between developers. So let's get to it. I'm just gonna hide my camera and then load this screen. All right, let's go. So this is the primary home purchasing process for new property. And the most common example is purchasing a strata property. So you start by paying an admin fee. Of course, some negotiators, they will say, the street lingo is booking fee, or, actually booking fee and deposit is the wrong term. The correct term is admin fee. And when you make the payment, always ask the rent for their rent registration number and not pay any unregistered agents, because sometimes that may go to, that could be a scam, or they could be acting on behalf of other rents. There could be sub agents. So only pay legitimate rents who have their license number. Okay, so once you make the payment, and immediately the negotiator will ask you to apply for your loan, and then you have to submit your paperwork. So this process can take any time from 2 weeks to a month. Sometimes it's better you can go and talk to any loan officers and get what we call a pre-approval, or you can go online and type. For example, you can Google, am I eligible for a home loan? So different banks have different calculations, so you can get a pre-approval. Of course, best if the property that you want to purchase, you can ask the negotiator who are your panel loan providers, and then get started from there. Okay. The next one is, once you get your loan approval, then the good news is you have to prepare for signing, of which the negotiator would then pass all the information to the lawyers, and then the lawyers will start to prepare the paperwork and arrange for signing. So during the signing, you have to sign a number of documents. So for example, the sale and purchase agreement, and the loan agreements, and of course the stamping fees. Okay, and then after that, the lawyer will instruct the banks that they can start to release some payment to the developers. Usually this happens within 90 days of you actually paying your registration fees, okay, your admin fee. And then once the disbursement is made, after a period of time, you will start to expect to start servicing the loan in smaller amounts. So you won't service the full loan amount, but you start to service the interest for the loan. So these are smaller amounts before you actually get your keys, and then after that you'll be expected to pay the full amount. Okay, and then during that period, if the strata title is issued to you, then the lawyer will instruct you to release the MOT payment so that they can process the strata title to your name. Okay, so during this phase, of course, from here, from this part to this part, it could be 3 years or 4 years or 2 years, depending on what stage you make during the purchase. And usually a property takes about 4 years to complete before vacant possession or VP, then you finally get to collect your key. So if you go for a new launch project, from the time you make your booking, you'll be expected for this process to complete in about 4 years to 5 years. Okay, so this is the process. Next, this is what we call the payment schedule. So immediately after signing this SPA, so I go back to this part here, right? Immediately after signing, then the lawyer will instruct the bank to release the payment, but the payment only release a small amount, usually like you can see here 10%. And then you will get this schedule when you purchase your property. After a portion, for example, this one, the structure is up, and then the developer will get more a certain portion percentage of the payment. And then the once the internal finishes are up, then they get a certain portion. And then this one, on the date of the VP, then they will get a bigger portion. So you can refer to this schedule just to let you know that as this percentage of completion, right, goes on and on and on, it will add to 100%. So then you will have to your loan amount will increase accordingly. You won't just, once you make the payment, then you have to start servicing the full monthly amount. It will slowly increase until the balance 5% payment here, right, is the retention fee that is only payable after your defect liability period ends. Okay, so this is how it works. So let me just go back up here again. So this is for primary homes. Of course, if you buy a sub-sale home, this process is relatively straightforward until here, right? After the disbursement, then usually it will jump straight to you collecting the keys lah. Of course, there is no construction period since the house is already completed, but for most of the process, this part is still applicable. Okay. So I'm not gonna go through all in detail. You can just pause the screen. But essentially, this is the breakdown of the legal fees for the SMP. Usually, the first 500,000 of the property, you'll be billed 1% of the legal fee. And then the next 500,000, you'll be billed 0.8%, and so on and so forth. If you want to know the case study, it will be in the next episode, okay? But I just let you know first. And then you are also expected to pay the stamp duty fees for the transfer of title to your name. So this is the breakdown. Okay, and of course, for first-time homeowners, from time to time, the government will give some incentive or the developer will give some incentive. So they may choose to waive this. It depends on the promotion or the offer that the developer offer or the government offers at your time of purchase. Okay. So you'll also be expected to pay for disbursement. So these are additional expenses incurred, such as coordination of the paperwork, coordination with different parties, photocopying fees, administrative fees. So these are called disbursements that the lawyer will charge you. And then in terms of paperwork, when you want to apply for loan, right, you need to prepare your bank records, your identity verification. What they want to do is basically assess your work and your financial health. Work meaning that you have a stable working job, that you can consistently earn income, and then you are in good financial health, which means that you have good credit rating. So if an individual owes too much money to the credit card companies, or they have a bad history of payment, then it will show up in your what we call a CCRIS and your CTOS report. This one your loan officer will normally advise you. But essentially, if you are a taxpayer, you're an employee, you're a taxpayer, and you have contributed more than 2 years, and then you have your salary slip of your last 3 to 6 months, and then you've already done your calculation, your paperwork, you have good financial health, then this should normally go through without a hiccup. Otherwise, your loan officer will advise you. Okay. So after that, the next one is you get your loan approval. So for loan, normally you can get up to 90% loan. If you own, if I'm not mistaken, more than 3 properties, you can only apply maximum 70% loan. Okay, so the maximum loan tenure is 35 years in Malaysia, or until the borrower turns 70 years old, whichever one is earlier. The next one, this is the breakdown of the loan legal fees that you're expected to pay for the contract. So I won't go into detail, but you can screenshot if necessary and refer to the case study later. A typical interest rate is around 4.5%. Of course, this fluctuates depending on the state of our economy and what the government advice is. Okay, so it can change from time to time. So for the loan stamp duty, it is 0.5%. So sometimes this amount for first-time homeowners, depending on what government incentive and the budget announcements, there are some exemptions as you can see here. But of course, do check again with your loan provider, okay? Then sometimes you may be expected to also be billed a processing fee of 200 ringgit. But of course, if you see this, you can contact your bank and ask whether they can waiver it, similar to your annual credit card fees. For sub-sale properties, secondary houses, sometimes the bank will also put in this what we call a valuation fee of 0.3%. This figure can vary from homes to homes, so take note on that. Why they do this is because they want to make sure that, let's say if you purchase a property at 500,000 ringgit, they have to do a valuation to confirm that the property is actually worth that amount, and they will get a valuer to justify why, so that there's no hanky-panky going on lah. Okay, of course, for the loan also, you'll be expected to pay some disbursement fee from the lawyer. Okay, this part is relating to mortgage insurance. So mortgage insurance is to protect your loan repayment in case of a rainy day. There are two types of mortgage insurance. So reducing term assurance, MRTA, versus mortgage level term assurance. So you might be wondering, okay, what this is. This is just a very, very simple breakdown. MRTA is the sum insured gradually decreases with the loan tenure and lumped into your home loan. The cost is lower and is most ideal. For example, you are an individual. So what it means is you buy a property, and then if something bad happens, touch wood, if something bad happens, then the insurance company will actually pay the balance payment back to the bank, so that you don't have to service the monthly rate. And then as the years progresses, let's say you take a 30-year loan, as the year progresses, the sum or the insurance sum you pay actually decreases. Okay, so if you don't have a family, you just want to de-risk this thing in case, let's say there's a risk of you getting hurt, or that can cause total permanent disability where you cannot work anymore, then you can opt to go for this option. Whereas MLTA is the sum insured is constant throughout the duration of your loan tenure with a fixed premium. So for example, maybe your loan that you have to pay the monthly is 2,500 ringgit. And then on top of that, you have to pay another, I'm just giving an example, another like 1,000 ringgit on every month for MLTA. So the cost is definitely way higher than MRTA, and is ideal for families because it is transferable. Think of it as something like a life insurance. So if something bad happens to you, um, your repayment is insured. On top of that, the beneficiary will also get some cash because of an unfortunate incident. Okay, so the mortgage insurance, some banks will insist and make it compulsory. Some banks say it's not compulsory, but I advise you to get some form of insurance. So if you don't have insurance, for example, if you're an employee and the company give you insurance, then you don't have any individual insurance outside, then I recommend you can consider getting mortgage insurance. If you already have a premium personal insurance, you also have company insurance, then maybe you don't have to go for your mortgage insurance if it's not compulsory. Okay, so if you have a trusted insurance advisor, please speak to them, and then they can give you a second opinion also. Okay, so let's talk about what happens. This is the most exciting part once you collect your keys. Okay, from after you make your initial purchase, and then you wait for the construction, and then from time to time, maybe the developer will give you some updates in photos, and then they will tell you, okay, what date you can come and start to collect your keys. Okay, so after you collect your keys, it's very normal to do your defect checking. As you can see here, this is one of the properties that I help the owner to check. You can see like, of course, once you get very, very excited, don't be surprised that you find defects. So if you are not experienced, I recommend you consider hiring a home inspector who will give you the full report. Then you have less worry. But if you have if you want to just try it out, you just have a look first. These are the typical scenarios. This is home leaking. So these are mold. And when the house is leaking, you will see watermarks here. Okay, then you know that is leaking. Then for example, some glass, the you can see the aluminium start to crack, and then sometimes you need to also check for the bonding to see whether the water drains out well or not. Then you need to check for hollow tiles, and then for the concrete and the brickwork, you need to check whether this hairline crack, is it a minor one or a major one, and then you have to report them. Make sure you note down. Okay, let's say if you already appointed a contractor or interior designer, you can ask them to come along as well. Normally they will help you to identify these issues as well. Okay, so for secondary homes, make sure all the defects are rectified and listed for rectification under the conditions of the sale. Meaning that if let's say you want to purchase the property and the owner decide that they will make good on those, then make sure you note them down and they make good before they hand you the keys. Otherwise, if there are many many defects, you can also negotiate for a discount and do it yourself. So you pass it to your contractor to remedy all these defects. Okay, so make sure you take lots of photographs, identify the location and note the issue, and then arrange for a joint inspection before and after the defect rectification is done. Okay, sometimes you can use stickers to mark the location. And of course, again, I want to stress again, it's very important if you don't have experience in a construction to ask someone who actually knows what to look for, or you can just hire a house inspector for a few hundred ringgit to help you to check thoroughly. So once you finish your defect, then you can start to plan your reno. It will be good if you have an interior designer, so they will help you to plan everything. But let's say if you want to save a little bit of money, I will advise you, you can go to retailers like IKEA, because I like IKEA because what you see is what you get in terms of the product and the consistency in the quality. Okay, what I love even more is I actually utilize their payment terms, because then I don't have to front so much money upfront. So for my property, I actually design it myself, and then I made 5 trips to IKEA in my small car, and each time I just load a little bit, and I pay by installment that is interest free. So I'm trying to stretch the dollar. Okay, but your circumstance, it just depend on how your budgeting is. If you can afford it, by all means, look for a good interior designer to help you plan your dream home. This is a lesson that I wish to share. Sorry about the picture, but essentially, another option I went for was I went to some direct from factory outlets. Okay, so this is the case study where I want to share with you. I actually purchased this sofa. It looks incredible, and when I purchased it, they gave me a nice discount. So I was very happy about it. It was very solid as well. But a few months after the sofa came to my house, of course, I customized different color. The whole thing sank. So something was wrong with the sofa. What happened was I opened the backing line underneath the sofa, and to my horror, I discovered that this sofa that was supporting, when you put your bum on the seat, is only supported by bungee cords and recycled timber frames from the wooden pallets. So I was really, really shocked. No wonder it was so cheap. So the lesson learned, sometimes you pay for what you get. You have to really, really maybe get recommendations, but in this instance I can't recommend just going for a cheap options. Most of my products I got from IKEA, but I thought a few items the design didn't quite fit what I wanted. Then I saw some from direct from factory outlets, and at the same time it was cheap as well, so I decided to go for it. So to my horror, this was the case. They actually use really, really cheap materials. That's why it's so bad, the quality. And ended up I had to go and repair this sofa myself. Okay, so buyer beware. The next one is I had very good experience attending the different home expos. Um, I could go there and talk to the different vendors, and these vendors normally are quite reputable because why? They actually have to pay quite a bit of money to display everything, and they have many, many sales agents. So far I had a good experience. Even for my kitchen cabinet I took from Home Expo. I actually designed it and gave it to them. They helped me to do the planning, and there was some defect. They also came to help to do all the touch up. So far I have nothing but good things to say about Home Expo compared to the cheaper direct from factory outlets, because this one, when I had the problem, there's basically cash and carry. There's no warranty. Okay, whereas this Home Expo, usually they're always there, and their after sales service is quite good. Okay, so I will end it here. These are the different bits and pieces of all the processes. Of course, I compress the timeline a little bit, but I hope it gives you a very good overview now, the foundation on all the different bits and pieces that you need to go through from start to finish.